Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Platformers live stream weekly session. And today we are going to talk with three special people that wrote a book, Hilliary, Max, and Andy. But before we jumping into the book, maybe let's say hi first. How is it going?
Hey, it's going fantastic.
Hi. Snowy here.
Where are you?
I just made it in time before the snowstorm to Chicago. But right now there's like a big snowstorm rolling through. So let's see how this turns out.
Wow. And where are you joining us, Max and Hilliary?
I'm joining from Munich. The snow just actually happened yesterday. Today it's just gray and ugly.
And I'm joining from the San Francisco Bay Area of California. So right now, I think rain is just starting for today. We've had it kind of on and off last couple of days. So just getting some rain going right now outside.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm so happy I'm living in a city where there is like sun almost every day. Cool. And I know all of you signed the book. We are going to show the audience the book in a few seconds, but at KubeCon, how was it there?
Intense. I think I even during my student time, my finger never hurt so much. But at the same time, it never makes so much fun to sign and write something.
Yeah, and I think we had Hilliary unfortunately not being present because I think you had a good excuse to not be there. It was a birthday of your daughter.
Wow,
my
birthday.
son. Yeah,
Oh,
my
his
son. Yeah, his 10th birthday. I posted a pun about this on LinkedIn because he's really into Rubik's Cubes right now. So he had a Rubik's Cube themed cake. And I was like, we had our own KubeCon. Anyway, like one other person got the joke. It's fine.
No, but to add on what Max said, I think it was really interesting to first of all, thanks to Dynatrace for kind of sponsoring the book signing, and we gave out 400 copies. And I think next time we should maybe sign them prior to the actual giving it away, but and then just add like a personal note, because we tried to really add a personal note into every book that we handed out and spent a couple of seconds. So thank for everybody that actually lined up and waited it out. That was really good.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. So for people watching us at home, let's first of all show them the book so they will understand what we are talking about. So let me share my screen. And then if you can introduce the book and yourselves, that would be great. And what made you write this book? So the book is a really, as I see it, I had the chance to read a few chapters so far, and it's platform engineering for architects. I will try to zoom in a little bit. I hope it will. Yeah. And I see it as a very insightful in terms of seeing a lot of architecture and architecture discussion around platform engineering, and I love it a lot. But maybe you can introduce first of all yourself. What do you do for a living besides writing a book, and then what made you write a book?
I'm pretty sure we cannot live yet from writing a book.
Not living on this book money, no.
Maybe it will cover one day some travel costs. Yeah, sure. So I'm Max. I'm one of the managing directors of Liquid Reply, and also consulting and advising customers in any kind of cloud native technologies. And we're doing platform engineering since 6 years, and we do platform engineering since it was not called platform engineering, where it was just like quote unquote boring Kubernetes thingy and all this complexity around it. And yeah, from all this experience and time, somewhere we got the idea to write this book and to make it a little bit more timeless. That's why it has this architecture theme. It's not like on being too precise, too concrete on specific technologies, as an example, as a reference, but to be more focused on all the difficulties around it. And that was what also brings into the topic Andy and Hilliary, because I have this broad view of consulting and different platforms and sizes, and always some big visions around it. But I missed for writing it by myself the capabilities of being or having someone who's specialized in observability and the automation part, right? And have a very specialized focus about the automation, which is Andy. And Andy knows the perfect person coming to like, hey, how to operate these platforms and keep them secure, and how do you tackle all the problems around it, which is then Hillary's role. And so it's like three big pieces of a cake come together to form that book.
Yeah, and I want to say thanks, Max, because you kicked all of this off. I think we was it KCD Munich last year when the event that you are organizing, you had me speak about platform engineering, and then you approached me afterwards and said, hey, why not write a book together? And it was really fun. And to my person, quickly, I'm a fellow DevRel at Dynatrace. I've been there for almost 17 years now. So observability has been part of most of my career, and also performance engineering, because that's what I did before Dynatrace for 8 years. And so I was very happy to bring the observability aspect into that book, and not just like how can we automate and provide observability as a self-service to the people that use a platform, but also to observe the platform on its own, because the platform should be a product, and like any other software product, you want to make sure you can observe it. You know when it's up, when it's down, who is using it. So this is the experience that I brought in. And then Hilliary.
And then me. So actually, So Max brought in Andy. Andy brought in me. So Andy reached out to me and said, hey, my friend and I are going to write this book. We think that your SRE expertise could be really valuable here. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And so my first meeting with Max actually was at KubeCon in Paris this past year. I don't remember, March. Something.
March, yeah.
Whatever that was. I think it was March. And so, so that was where we sat down. And that by this point, like, Max had already started some conversations with the publisher. But really there was this really great meeting the three of us had, where we sat down for just like a couple of hours, and we basically banged out what ultimately became, what was it, a 60-page outline for the book. And that was like, then became kind of our guide through the rest of the book. But as for me, obviously I bring that SRE perspective. I mentioned that. So I'm a senior principal site reliability engineer at Red Hat, which is a really long title that basically means nothing to anybody. But what I functionally do is there's a product called Azure Red Hat OpenShift. That is a managed version of the OpenShift platform running on Azure. So the SREs are maintaining an SLA against the API server. And so I'm one of the team leads. There's a few of us, but I'm one of the team leads for that SRE group and that project. So the SRE group, actually, we take OpenShift, we do some magic on it to make it a managed service, and then we support it live in production. And it is a platform.
Wow. So all of you are in the platform business, let's say, for a very long time, which is great. Before we start to jump a little bit about what's in the book and your advices for people that learning or trying to expand their knowledge around platform engineering, for people watching us live, if you have a question, a comment, anything that you would like to ask this amazing panel, just post it on the comments on LinkedIn, on YouTube, whatever you're watching. Write it on the comments. We will see it in here when we will ask. This is the good thing about being live with us. So maybe let's jump a little bit about what do you think would be like principles or consideration when we architecting a platform? And I know there are a lot of things in the book, but what would be like the top 3 people that you think people should consider?
I mean, we discussed a lot about this in the first chapters, and throughout the book, again and again and again about it. It's asking like, what's the purpose of the platform? The answer, the why, and what you're going to build, and really find the purpose for it. I always like to give the reference, which you can see with the AI hype. People are looking for the use case, but it's not a problem which they're going to solve. And similar with a platform, you can construct any kind of use case. But if you have a very concrete problem which you want to solve, it's way more easier, it's way more functional, and you have some key principles you can follow for designing a platform, taking decisions on a platform, taking decisions always comes sometimes with technical depths, where we have one specific chapter on it, because that's part of being an architect, that in the end you always have maybe a downside on whatever you have decided along the way.
Yeah, you're not getting away from technical debt, right? You have to be very conscious of it up front, because everything comes with trade-offs. Right? There's no perfect technology, there's no perfect thing. And then you may find that the thing you picked that worked great ultimately stops working great. Either business has moved, the industry has moved. You don't get technical debt just from mistakes. You get technical debt from the absolute best choice possible to have been made at the time. And I think that's the misconception around technical debt, is that it's a byproduct of mistakes, and that's not accurate. It's a byproduct of time.
Yeah, and from my perspective, to kind of add on what Max also said, finding the purpose. Before you find the purpose, you want to also find out who are your end users. What are you actually, like, what's the problem that people have right now? And I think this is where it's very important that people that build platforms, that at least I see a lot of people that build platforms don't have a product background. That means they have never, engineered and created a product for end users. But with platform engineering, we're asking our people, hey, you want to build something that will be helpful for your end users, your internal engineers. So, do you actually know your engineers? Do you know where they have problems? Do you know how you could solve this problem, and also in which way? Because every engineering organization is different. Every engineer is different. They have different tools that they live in. So try to figure out how you can make their life easier, but also making sure that they don't have to completely change their way of work, right? If they live in a certain tool, in a certain process, try to make it fit into that process. And this will then ultimately, I think, lead to better adoption. As the other way around, if you just build something and throw it over and say, hey, here's something that you need to use and it will help you, this is most likely be bound to fail.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things we discuss in the book is that not every user of an IDP is actually a technical user. So we actually talked a lot about the docs people, right? Not a lot, but I referenced them a couple of times. Realistically, like, your docs are a living thing that needs to be life cycled and live alongside the product that is ultimately user facing. And so that, those are another persona of who may be using the platform. So we talk about golden paths and critical user journeys, right? These project management tools for defining and building the platform. But we also talked about, like, for whom. And so, yeah, you have the devs, but you also have your quality engineers, your security engineers, your SREs, your docs folks. PM probably is going to need to use the platform too, realistically, right? Your product managers or your project managers, even whichever PM stand for acronym in your org. Realistically, the platform becomes a central place where everybody involved in delivering, the core product that makes the money that goes to end users, everybody has to gather around it. So kind of what Andy was saying about, adoption is driven by meeting people where they are, right? Mm-hmm. And so that might be Slack integrations, that might be Jira integrations, that might be throwing a GUI on top of stuff. Like, there's a lot of different ways to meet people where they are, or meet people, if you can't meet them exactly where they are, in the way they best work.
I think it's, what's interesting about that is that there is always debate, what is the P in IDP? And the D and the D as a developer is kind of there. Like, we always kind of not agreeing, but putting the developers there. But there are wide varieties of engineering and non-engineering roles, as you said, that is part of those D. I don't know how they feel when three, like, letters do not come aligned with the idea, basically. Oh. If you are coming into, like, IDPs and the P in IDP, like, what do you think the P should be? Is it a portal or is it a platform?
As a book is called Platform Engineering, it must be platforms, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think we also sort it out and give an explanation to it, what we're talking about. We define, like, we talk about cloud native platforms as, like, the underlying construction for everything, because through standardization and specification, you can make out of it what you need. It can be just in some way maybe a portal, but then it really defines what is the purpose of it. That's why it's important to define the purpose, right? But if we talk about a full-scaled platform as a product, then it's way larger than just a portal. And I mean, just is like, again, quote unquote, Backstage and Co are very, very strong tools. But they have just the front end to all the automation which happens. And this automation needs to happen in the infrastructure. It needs to happen in the CI/CD, in the GitOps part, and all needs to come together. And the larger the organization get, the more specialized roles you will find into it, and they have to go into this. And so that's why it's, for us, clearly a platform.
Yeah. One of the things that we talked about, and I think I may have been the person that introduced this concept into the book, was that your internal developer platform is probably multi-tenant. Right? It's probably multi-tenant, especially if you're in any highly regulated industry. You know, one team should not be seeing the stuff like on the back end from the other team, realistically. And then none of it from production should reach the wrong people. And there's all of that, you know, separation of considerations that need to occur to maintain regulatory compliance, and honestly just least privilege, right? The best posture is the one of least privilege. So it has to be a platform, because when you're talking about a place, you know, because it doesn't just do, I think the concept of an internal developer portal is really just, to me, that term kind of came up with the concept of creating a unified way of doing development in an organization. But an internal development platform is so much more than that, because it's not just where you build, it's also where you run. And that is a very important differentiator between the concepts, to my mind. This is, you know, my opinion, so feel free to tell me you think I'm wrong, because I'm fine to be wrong. But it's a key differentiator to my mind, is that this is all the pre-production stuff and then also the production stuff. And so when you think about that, and you think about the fact that your platform is really can be that sweeping, I don't want to say is, but can be that sweeping, then, you know, you're bringing in that additional layer of what do I want to say here? I don't want to say problems, but it's an additional, you get an additional problem set, and less complexity. You get an additional layer of complexity to that, essentially that ecosystem that exists in your organization. And so, yeah, the platform being multi-tenant was something that when I was talking to Andy about it initially, I think I was like, yeah, no, these things got to be multi-tenant. They have to be. And because you got to make sure the data from production doesn't make its way back.
Wow, that's something amazing, because I think I had a lot of discussions around platform engineering, and multi-tenant did not come up in most of them, and I'm really happy that you put that into the book, or put your minds into the book with all of that stuff, and interesting and innovative stuff that you heard from your place that you work, from people in the community, and that's absolutely great.
And I think this is also you just mentioned it, right? Because we all have a background where we work with organizations where this is a requirement. We're all building, and we are responsible for products that are by default multi-tenant, because that's just a requirement. And I think that's also why we added this to that book. And maybe the last thing, even though it was also mentioned, what is the P in IDP? We agreed on platform, but the reason why we had a second tagline to the book, it says platform engineering for architects, crafting modern platforms as a product. So I think the P, some may say it could be a product, because in the end it's a big product, and it has different things for the different users of that platform/product. Yeah.
Wow, it's great. You can always, by the way, change from architecting to like product management for platforms, and then resell it on a brand new name. No one will know that.
Exactly. No, we don't want to sell. We don't want to sell our readers stupid. No, we don't want to.
Like when we're talking, like I'm doing like solutions architect, and I think one of the main thing about architecting is that you need to think a lot about what you do, and then you develop, you put it out there, and then any decision that you made actually have a massive impact on the agility of the platform, that the things that can be changed, the things that cannot be changed or hard to be changed. What do you think that would be like potential like big or impactful decision when you design a platform?
Oh, we talked about this in the Taking Technical Debt chapter, which is chapter 9. So we one of the things that I talked about there was the concept of build versus buy. And I simplified buy to buy may mean literally buy something with money, and it may mean adopt an existing open source or free tool. So I simplified buy down to just like a single stream, just to make the diagram not so complex. But that is one of the biggest decisions, is taking in, like, do I build this thing or do I integrate something that already exists, right? That can have some of the biggest impact because it influences your technical stack, it influences your dependencies, it influences your security posture in some ways, it influences your team capacity as well. And it influences what your team is going to have to work on. So in terms of just the developer team, right, that integration, if I'm a developer and I'm writing some software and I'm forced to use an integration, right, there's a piece of cognitive load there where some of those integrations are not going to affect me, and some of those integrations might. So there may be a learning curve that I have to have. And then the actual platform team building the platform kind of has the same thing, right? So anything that you do and you integrate, whether you're building it yourself or you're bringing in something that already exists, right? There's that initial kind of like that hump of cognitive load of understanding the piece of the thing, understanding the integration of the thing, understanding how to use the thing. So both personas are going to experience some pain and some friction from each thing added, just because there's always a learning curve. So you kind of have to decide, like, what is the right learning curve for my team, right? I could bring in something, fantastic, but if it really, bad example, good example. Let's just say that you want to start doing some automated setup and teardown with Ansible, right? Ansible doesn't have the highest learning curve, but if it's one more thing on top of an already complex, technical stack that's already somewhat varied, that may be like one thing too far. And so in those kind of the types of things that you have to look at is like, does it make sense to build? Does it make sense to buy? Why does it make sense? And whether or not something is objectively an easy tool doesn't make it easy for the organization. So there's the human component and the technical component both must be weighed in making these decisions. And either way, you're getting, like, everything you add is a new piece of technical debt. So you choose your technical debt wisely.
Yeah, I also wanted to add something, and this comes back to we're building a product, and I think the hardest thing when whatever product you are developing is actually throwing things out that don't work. And in order to know what doesn't work is you need to observe. And to give you a concrete example, right, coming back to Backstage as one of the IDPs that we see out there a lot, you create your templates, but if you never monitor and you don't know who is using which templates and which templates are not used, if you don't know this, then you will just adding new templates based on what one person maybe says, hey, I need another template for this and for this. So one of the ways to get a hold of this, or to make sure you manage this correctly, understand who is using which features of your platform. In the case of Backstage, it could be which templates are not used, and then you can make the decision. First, find out why nobody's using it. Maybe there's just a flaw with it. Just talk with your users like you would do with regular product engineering. And if really there's nothing you can fix because simply it's a template that nobody needs, then remove it, because this removes time that you need to spend to maintain all these things. So I think having a good understanding of how your platform is used and who is using it and who is not using it and why people are not using it helps you make better decisions on keeping your platform as a product also lean.
Absolutely. Like, I think that, like, data-driven product, like when you read about data-driven and observability, those, like what you said, really comes in, because we use it on external products because we want to, understand what users are doing. And sometimes we do, I don't want to say workaround, but kind of easy with ourselves when it comes to internal tooling. Oh,
But
okay.
in the end, it's, you said this, right? For external tooling, we do it because it's business critical for your organization. But the platform is the most business critical tool and product for your engineers. And so why don't we do the same thing? And we just should do the same thing. And as simple as that.
It's a culture shift, right?
Wow.
There has to be a culture shift around this to prioritize having a good user experience in the building of the thing that we sell, right? It's a culture mindset. It that needs to change. And sometimes, it's not even like it's malicious choosing not to do this, right? No one's doing it because they don't like their devs or anything like that. There's a lot of different ways that those things don't get prioritized. I think I've been in this industry for 15 years, so I've seen a lot of different reasons why these things don't get done. But the commonality, and I think this is why we wrote the book the way we did, the commonality is the internal tooling wasn't treated as a product. It wasn't approached with that same discipline as we approached what was external facing. And that's really the biggest reason why it failed. And so when we were talking about this, and we all had that same, like Max said it first, but we were all so much agreed, like, yes, it's a product. It needs a product vision.
Yeah. And I think in the end, this cultural aspect and this mindset is this product mindset where we have to go to. And I always like to say, like, the big problem which we have today, if we build something, it can be a platform, but it can be any kind of application, is usually we do this as a project, and projects has deadlines, and as it already says, it has deadline. If you cross it, it's done. Your budget is gone, most likely the team is gone, product managers are gone, the vision is gone, and you shift often those deliverables into a maintenance mode. And then you have like often people working on something who maybe even doesn't want to work on it anymore because there is no investment behind it. No one who cares more or less what's going on. It must run. It's critical. We see it often with end customers. You have millions of connected devices, millions of visitors, millions of shop processes, whatever. But it just runs. It doesn't need to develop or get evolved over time at the moment. And this is really where we have to change to, hey, that's a product. People needs to love on what they're working. And then it can be way, simply put out, it can be way better in the future to be maintained. People get more feedback. People like to put in the feedback which they get from the end customers and so on and so forth. And then this combination with a platform to go back to that, we once somewhere said in the book, the platforms needs to be for the end user desirable. They need to desire the platform. They really, really need to enjoy to go to that, and this is their home turf, and they feel good there. And if it doesn't provide something, then they can have the trust to the platform engineering team to go to them and say, like, look, I would like to have this and that. Or even better, ideally the customer has even an open community, and so everyone is welcome to propose or even submit features and extensions for that.
Cool. I can see someone ask a question, so let's keep on with that. So Johan, is it the goal of the platform as a product to abstract away the underlying technologies such as Kubernetes, Helm, Terraform, Ansible into a unified product, or is it about having a central place that links to all these tools, or both?
Well, again, it's a little bit both, right? It's the question what you want to achieve. If you want to get rid of all the complexities and all the tools below it, and this is your goal, for sure you can reach it in some way or the other. But what I've seen in the market is mostly that you will have a mixture of it. Like that's why you have also IDPs like as a portal, right? Some people want to see something, but I know the same amount of people, they hate portals. They just want to communicate through APIs. They don't need a portal. Or some just living in GitHub and GitLab and just ever make PRs and whatsoever. And they never take a look somewhere else. They even do not go into a cloud provider, the infrastructure and so on. But yeah, the platform as a product itself, we also write about this abstraction and about the abstraction layer. Because on the one hand side, building a platform adds up another abstraction layer on top. So it makes things more complex, but it makes it more complex to reduce the underlying complexity, which is maybe a little bit paradox. But that's the ultimate goal, to bring a unified link between all these different components together. And in this case, we also discuss like, hey, does it needs to be a Kubernetes, for example? Where we say, like, for our book, yes, it is Kubernetes, but for one simple reason. We talk about standardization and specification. If it runs on Kubernetes, we can more or less ensure that every tool which runs on it can communicate with also other tools. This is the single point of truth which the platform knows. And that makes it more easier to then simplify other stuff.
Yeah, I also wanted to just add to this. In the end, before you make the decision, what should it be? Go back to figure out where are your engineers internally currently wasting too much time, where are they frustrated, and can you do anything that makes their day-to-day life easier? And then, depending on your organization, you may figure out, hey, all of our people struggling with Helm, so let's make Helm easier. Let's do an abstraction layer. On the other side, it could say, Helm is not the problem. We like the flexibility, but we just want to get easy access and some templates to get it, get easier going. So this is why it's the simple project, the simple suggestion again: understand your end users and their pain, and try to figure out how to solve the problem, and meet them, as Hilliary said nicely earlier, meet them where they are, and build something that fits into their process and makes their life easier. Because if you do that, you will see adoption, and you can then grow from that going forward.
Cool. So
I don't have anything to add. I agree with what they said. just making it clear. +1.
Amazing. And people, if you have other question, people watching us live, just put it on the comment. We have time for one more question. So I want to ask, like, some of the things about platforms, it's very abstract, right? And especially platforms and architecture, those are very abstract things together. And obviously in the book is a challenge to write it in a way that will be abstract, but also something that can be applied and people can understand how to relate it to the day-to-day life. How did you overcome this challenge in the book?
Oh, can I?
For sure.
Okay. This was another one of my ideas. And so I will say 90% of the book I feel like was like Max's brainchild. So I'm really proud of like my two great ideas that I had, right? So I'm going to brag about my second one. My second one was we created a concept of a fictitious company. So I was talking to Max and Andy, and I said, I'm having the same thing of like, what do I ground? There's a lot of theory. What do I bring it like to ground with? And I said, what if we created like this concept of a fictitious company? And like, I kind of spitballed a few ideas, and then Andy went out and like wrote up this beautiful, here's our fictitious company like thing for Max and I to review. And we're like, yes, looks great. And so we introduced that really early on in the book, a fictitious company. So we're taking you on this journey along with this fictitious company and their challenges that are representative of what we are seeing in the industry. And so that is the technique we use of like, okay, here's a fake company, but their problems are real. And we then apply the theory back to, so what would this mean for this company? And it's very specific because it could have lots of implications, because there's not every single company is the same. But there are, I think, some similar archetypes across the industry. So we bring it back to, okay, so for this situation, understanding these things, here is what our fictitious company would do at this point of the platform engineering journey.
Amazing. I think it's great that you took that. And something else that I want to add around the book and what I've read so far is the fact that you put in a lot of resources from different places and different perspectives, which kind of makes me as a reader to think a lot. It's not like, okay, I will read their ideas and I will learn more. No, it's kind of, I read a chapter and then I need to think a lot about what they said, how it comes together, what is different from the architecture draw of that source or the other source. and I really love it. I really love books that kind of make me think or make me like go into this journey. So we almost ran out of time. I want to ask you maybe last question. Like writing a book, it takes a lot of time and effort, and you're sharing a lot of your knowledge and thoughts with different people. But what you have learned by writing this book?
Well, that's a good one. I mean, for the writing process, I think after we have finished it or to the end of the book, I think I have never felt so drained with my brain capacity. Like
yeah.
in the beginning, you're like you can formulate about every idea some wisdom. You know, it's like it feels like you put some wisdom into words. But the more you do that, and the more we have written, the more complex it got, because we have to cross-check what we have written where, and didn't we repeat this already, and so on and so forth. And then it's really you feel how your brain capacity got drained out in some way. But also because we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. I think the lessons learned for that is also like, maybe we should take 1 or 2 months longer for writing next time.
I think
But
we
in the
did
end,
this in.
it was perfect timing. Yeah, it was
It
perfect timing
was.
for KubeCon.
Yeah.
Well, we brought in our initial deadlines to make that KubeCon date, right? And yeah, we did this in record time. Like, I'm talking to people who are working on writing books that started around the same time as us, and their books are not coming out until the spring. And I think doing the three of us together, that helped so much. I would not do this alone. I absolutely would not do this alone. Having the other people to bounce ideas off of and brainstorm with, and like just really, you know, really work through things with, what is worth it. It's worth it. The other thing is I got very good at outlining. So if I had to write a chapter and I was expecting it to be about 30 pages, my outlines were like 16 pages. And so that was probably the biggest part of it, was getting those outlines done. And then the actual writing was also, it was more difficult than I expected, because there were a few things I wrote and then trashed. And I was like, oh, I think I'll do this here. This will make a lot of sense. And then as I'm doing it and I'm going through it, I'm realizing the thing I'm adding is going to be 15 pages by itself. And I'm like, oh, I got to figure something else out. I got to find a new strategy. I got to tighten this up, bring it in. So, you know, a friend of mine was like, so he's like, oh, so you wrote like 150 pages. He's like, well, that couldn't have been that much time. I'm like, no, like all of the code I wrote that didn't get used, all of the, you know, all of the integrations I did that I didn't end up including, all of the research I did, everything like that. And then only for, you know, now it's been like 3 months, I guess, since we submitted our final drafts. And now like I see Kubernetes changing, and like a couple things have changed in Kubernetes now that almost even make some of what we talk about, it's pinned to the Kubernetes version we mentioned in the beginning of the book, right? But like you can see the technology already moving so far ahead of our specific examples. And that's why I'm glad we actually didn't include that many highly specific examples in our book, because we were aiming for timeless, and we know how this industry works.
Absolutely. Andy, one quick thing before we wrap up.
Yeah, sorry, my internet seems to have some hiccups here. Maybe that's due to the snowstorm and the weather conditions out there. But I think what was great for me in my regular work, and I'm sure this is true for everyone, you have your people that you constantly work with. So you're in your own bubble a little bit, right? And I think working with Hilliary and Max allowed me to work with people more intense on topics, and it also just broadened my understanding of the whole topic, because while we were writing our individual chapters where we were really good in, we constantly had exchanges, we reviewed each other's work, and also it forced me, because we're now writing a book, to really make sure that the stuff that I'm writing there makes sense. So a lot of time was spent also on research. So it definitely helped me. I think it's called T-shape, right? I think I expanded my T-bars into the direction of Hilliary and Max, while I still kept obviously my depth knowledge of the topic that I initially brought in. But I really liked the fact that I could dedicate time and very closely collaborate with them and learning something new. That was
amazing. So what I've learned is that if I'm writing a book, just doing it with an amazing group of people.
Always helps.
Yeah, big difference.
No, but it's really motivating. I always say, like, you need to imagine it. We wrote at the same time different chapters, and we submitted more or less at the same time the different chapters, which mean you from one day having 0 pages go to the other day you have 100 pages. And then this is motivating because it's like you're like tack, and you're like, oh, we have written already more than the half. How that happened? And then this is, I think it helped, but it also helped with our very tough timeline.
Cool. So we ran out of time. So first of all, I want to thank all of you, Max and Hilliary, first of all for coming in here, but more than that, for writing a book that actually will expand the knowledge around platform engineering. And I find it insightful, and I guess that most people reading it will find it too. If people are watching us and you do want to get a book, so I put a link to Amazon in the comments on YouTube and LinkedIn, and you can click on it and grab the book. That's it. So thank you for joining us for this live stream, and thank you everyone at home for watching us. That's it for today. Next week, we got a different stream about platform engineering with Hasid from Cisco. That's it for today. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.